Hello, hello. It is Wayfinder Wednesday. My name is Dr. Tanya Buzaid. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a very special guest with us, Dr. Rebel Smith from the West Virginia University. Hello, Dr. Rebel Smith. How are you today?
Good morning. Doing very well.
Great, great. Before we get started, I figure let's go and tell the folks who you are and what you've been up to. So I will read your bio here. Dr. Smith grew up in small town Oklahoma. She was a first generation and low income student who fell in love with college and decided to never leave. Her BA is in psychology and she has an MS in counseling and an EDD in higher education administration. She did leave higher education briefly upon completion of her master's and worked in inpatient psychiatric units. Dr. Smith has nearly 25 years of experience in higher education and has worked in a variety of areas: financial aid, undergraduate admissions, advising, graduate school education, online education, and the schools of business. She's passionate about student success, which is our topic today. And in her current role, she focuses on recruitment and retention. Dr. Smith has been married for 31 years, has 2 children, aged 25 and 18, and she enjoys traveling and spending summers on the lake. Wow, we have so much in common, Dr. Smith. Oh my, I was first generation. I went to, local school down here in Miami. My master's is in counseling education, as well as a PhD in higher education as well. So
Right.
It's so great to meet you in this virtual space. You have a ton of information and expertise, and you really, our topic about student success is at the forefront. And it's such a broad term. And so
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into what student success means to you, learn a little bit more about your experience and how that translates into students really being successful within this college experience that they go through.
Sure. You're right. There's a lot of talk of student success. More and more institutions are devoting resources to student success, and it does look different. So in my current role as Assistant Dean for Undergraduate Programs for the John Chambers College of Business and Economics, my team is responsible for bringing in high quality students, a great new class every year, and then we have to keep them until they graduate, until they complete their degree. So for me, student success is degree completion. Are they working towards completing their degree? If you take everything else out, if a student isn't making progress toward completing their degree, they're not achieving student success. So we're in higher ed, and success is degree completion. There are many other types of success. They can be a club officer, they can be in student government, there can be personal growth and self-improvement through therapy. Maybe they've incorporated a fitness plan and they're eating healthy. But ultimately, if a student leaves without completing their degree, that isn't student success.
Thank you for that. And, I just recently read a stat or a report that came out that talked about the number of students that have left college without a degree and how that number has increased over the past 3 years. That total number is about 39 million or so. And just in these last couple of years, that number for 3 years of students leaving college without a degree is in the 1 to 2 million student range. When we think about graduation rates, when we think about student success, all of that is intertwined, don't you think?
Absolutely. And I know we've taken great strides in helping students who do have to leave. And life happens. And there are a lot of things that happen that we really can't fix for the student.
Yeah.
We have 3 majors that have now, they're on campus as well as online. So we can do a lot to help a student who has to leave, even if they have to leave temporarily. They have to go home for a semester, they have a family member who's gravely ill. We can put them in some online classes to keep them enrolled. If we can keep them engaged and enrolled, even if only in a couple of classes, then we're more likely to keep them. If they stop, it is very hard to get them to come back. And there's a lot of effort in bringing back those stop outs, as we call them, right? We want to get them back enrolled. As institutions are looking for more ways of growth, that's a very popular one. And it's hard because they left for a reason, right? Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes they actually got a great job offer and they went ahead and decided to take it. So I think offering them opportunities to complete their degree in non-traditional ways can go a long way in helping students actually finish.
I love that. The first point about life happens, because it does, right? And so this group of undergraduate students, whether they're the traditional aged or, adult learners, life doesn't stop, right?
No.
There are unexpected life events, a pandemic that we all had to,
Yes.
work through and circumvent. And, that has been, a challenge in of itself, but couple that with other areas, other issues and life issues,
right.
When I think about prospective students or college-bound students, particularly high school age students and families thinking about, which college to go to and, the application process, that part of the conversation is not really had. It's not really part of the conversation when we're in the college research mindset, right? Where what do you do if you have to stop, right?
Right.
And
right.
So perhaps that's something that should be discussed a little bit more, because like you said, what if they get a great college work opportunity, an
right.
internship, or life happens? What are the plans for that? And so I think what you guys are doing is great. And you also mentioned helping students get back even in the non-traditional format, right? And so
absolutely,
coupling online with in-person makes so much sense.
It does. We're doing more and more, even for our on-campus students, where we're creating online courses that are for them. So we have online courses, really focused on our online population. So they tend to be 8 weeks, which is, it helps a non-traditional professional person's schedule. And so we're creating some online opportunities for our on-campus students because they're asking us for more flexibility and more options. And so I just feel like we need to listen. And if we don't start providing what they're asking, they're going to look for it elsewhere.
Right. And there are many universities that are probably in the same, situation where there is this need for increased flexibility.
Right.
And, but I think it's funny though, because at the onset of, pandemic, I don't want to focus too much on pandemic, related issues, but, online education, there was a lot of talk about it's not working. People don't like it. We want to be in the classroom, and there's nothing that can replace being in the classroom. But yet here we are where students have adapted, right?
Well, so have we. We want flexibility.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. I'm not going to say that everything can go online, because my daughter's degree is in animal sciences, right? She's taking care of the sheep at the farm. There are certain things you can't do online, and I totally get that. But there's a lot that we can, and we can actually do it very well.
Yeah.
And yes, when we flipped very suddenly and not very well in March of 2020, students, in all fairness, there were some reasons not to be very happy, but we got a lot better at it, and so did they. So when we returned to campus, they were asking me for online classes still, and we didn't have them because we were returning to normal. Right?
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So we've kind of backtracked a little bit, and we're incorporating more online options so that our students have that flexibility that they are asking for.
And I think that's incredibly important for universities to be able to listen to their constituents, to the students, and meet these requests of educational modalities, whether if it's a hybrid model. Switching gears a little bit, when we also think about enrollments, your office is responsible for recruitment and retention. So retention, that's keeping students here.
Yes.
Keeping students at the university and making sure that they persist and ultimately complete. With respect to recruitment, there's a lot of talk about how enrollments are down, but yet we're also seeing application rates skyrocket within these last 2 years, and even acceptance rates, particularly at the Ivy League and highly selective institutions, selectivity and acceptance rates are going down. But what's all this talk with enrollments going down, and how does that affect what you do?
Greatly. I think it's interesting, whereas I think applications are up significantly in a lot of different institutions. Some schools it's down, but the really great schools, the more prestigious selective schools, the Ivies, theirs are off the charts. Yes. And I think a lot of it comes back to the Common App, right? Mm-hmm. In the old days, we had to fill out a different application for every institution. So we were kind of picky and we didn't want to waste our time. And I think now students are like, oh, let's try here, let's try there. And I think it's allowing them, whereas before they might have applied to 3 or 4, I think they're now applying for like 7. Yeah. So apps are up, but not necessarily the student numbers. So I think where there's a lot more of us that are scrambling and kind of fighting over that same group of students, that same target. Enrollment is challenging. I think every school has something unique and different that they can offer. And I'm truly one that believes in the right fit. I think a student has to go on a campus visit. They have to go feel that environment. They have to talk to people. Otherwise, you're not getting the full picture. So I think, those campus visits go a long way. I think how we communicate with people, with the students and their families, that can also really set you apart. Is it all automated? Is it some personalized? Do you have students reaching out? There's a lot that we can do that goes a long way to differentiating ourselves. But yes, there's a lot of conversation about the impending enrollment cliff. And it actually has kind of hit sooner than we expected because COVID impacted enrollments significantly. And we're bouncing back a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to be careful because we're bouncing back only to then we might hit it again just with the natural decline of the population that's going to happen in 2025.
Right. Wow. You mentioned a few things there that I really want to highlight in terms of enrollments. It's conversation for enrollments. That's, what we talk about in higher education and studying like the different trends. But on the, prospective family side of things, how does that really impact? And I think you laid it out beautifully where we see that applications are up because it's easier to apply, right? So what's the correlation there? It's easier to apply. Students are applying to way more schools than they have ever. It has become a little bit more competitive, but it's also easier, right? And your point about college fit, going to college campuses, taking these visits, it's one thing I think for students to understand the brand name school kind of idea. And then you think and you've done the virtual visits and you're rooting for whatever football, basketball team, and you kind of identify with the college and you want to become that part of that community. Mm-hmm. But then when you visit, it may not translate, right? The visit, the fit of the university, and that's something that I totally identify with. And I work with my students myself. I really talk about fit. Like, what does fit mean to you? Are you aligned with their values? Are you aligned with their programs? Just as an institution, what do they stand for? And so I think that's incredible that you mentioned that. And when we think about because Dr. Smith, we're getting older, right? and these
fortunately.
They're just getting younger. And so we have to also be creative in how we communicate with students and the families, right? And that personal touch is, I think, invaluable. No one wants to feel like a number, especially when you're paying for education, you're paying for a service, you're investing in yourself. You don't want to feel like an automated number in a process, right? In a digital marketing process, this whole world that we're in. And
absolutely.
So can you speak to how we communicate, how we should be communicating and connecting with this Gen Z population and student demographic?
I think that's the $1 million question, right? I think regarding social media, I think we're getting a lot better at hiring influencers who are closer in age to the students that we're recruiting.
Right.
So as long as we keep doing that, it will help us stay connected. I think we're doing everyone a disservice if we think we can be the ones to connect with them.
Right.
I think we have to be realistic to know that, as you said, we're getting older, and we are seen as administrators.
Right.
Talking to current students and young professionals is more meaningful, and truly the current students. When we do our open house events, we always have a student panel. Right. So we have a student in the fall. Our events are designed where parents and students are together, and then in the spring we kind of break them up, and we have a student panel in all of those. And of course, the student panel tends to discuss different things in the student section, and then as they do in the parent one. And it's amazing how the parents appreciate having those students there, because I'm usually in the parent room, and how they appreciate hearing from our current students and how they've been successful and what they've done. And then our prospective students, it's so much more meaningful to hear something from students. We could say the same thing, but it carries more weight and more value when it's from someone that might be, 1 or 2 years older than them. I think we also have to get better at meeting them where they are.
Yeah. We're
texting more.
Yeah.
We have products and tools where we can text because we know they're not reading their email.
No.
It doesn't matter what we say, we know they're not reading their email.
Right.
There's technology in the classroom. I've noticed the newest classes, because of COVID, really it could be some of the older students as well. They were struggling to get back into the kind of the groove of class participation.
Right.
Because they've been virtual for, so long, 1.5 years, in some cases, 2 years. And the technology where students are able, to use their phone and log into a live survey.
Yeah.
And they can answer questions.
Yeah. And
you can see everything pop up on the screen. They're participating in a way that makes them more comfortable, as opposed to class discussion in that more traditional format. I think we have to kind of ease them back into that.
Right.
So it really is using technology to meet them where they are, right? We want them to achieve their learning goals and objectives. My son is 18. The way he learns is very different from the way I learned.
Right.
And we can't keep doing the same thing in the classrooms. No, we just can't.
There are certain things that are, tried and true, right? So particularly in specific disciplines. However, there has to be this embrace of technology as a whole within higher education, because it's necessary. No one is without this thing that is just it's biased the whole time. And so making sure that we're connecting by embracing technology, not being scared of it, but using it like anything else as a tool. I think that's the way to go. And definitely highlighting brand ambassadors, as what they call it, or influencers, or peer. You're so right. It's going to carry so much more weight when it comes to, we're giving the same message, but it really depends on who the messenger is.
And it's where they are. I don't know where they are. Right about the time I figure out where they are, they're someplace else. So it would just not be, organic.
Yeah.
Right. It needs to be more natural.
Yes. We lag a little bit more behind when it comes to how fast these guys are moving all around, even just from one platform to the next. So
I think in higher ed, we have to realize what we don't know and get the people in who do.
Yes.
To get it done. Right.
Right. Oh, totally. Or else, it's just going to continue to get worse. And that's not really,
will just continue to grow.
we will continue to grow. And then ultimately what we're talking about, which is student success, that's going to suffer, right?
Right.
And so, when you think about retention and completion and student success and what that looks like, we talked a little bit about how colleges can better serve and promote student success. But I also think that prospective families and students want that guarantee of student success, of, I'm going to do well, I'm going to excel, I'm going to accelerate into
Sure.
my chosen career field, etc. And
Right.
so I like to steer that conversation in terms of guaranteeing success, because it's really all about the individual. But at the same time, I think that colleges and institutions can guarantee some level of success once the formula or the system is properly navigated and optimized for student success. So what are your thoughts on how colleges can guarantee some level of student success?
So I'm going to play the devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, I can't guarantee student success. So when I talk to parents at these events and when I talk to them at new student orientation, what I tell them is we provide all of the tools necessary for student success, but we can't make your student pick them up and use them. And in a school of business, students, success isn't only degree completion, it's also preparing for professional opportunities. So we offer networking events. We help them practice interviews. We have student organizations that are unique to the School of Business. We have all of these things that we offer. And if the student isn't taking advantage of those, we can't guarantee success. So in my class, if a student misses twice, I'm emailing them. And some of them are like, they kind of appreciate getting called out. Oh, someone's paying attention. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'll be in class, I promise. And they start coming because they know someone now cares. Other students they'll never respond. I can send them an email every week and they won't respond.
Right.
And there's only so much, that we can do. And, we talk about I have a very realistic approach in that we talk about dropping a class and we stress the drop deadline. And, I always say, I'd rather you have a W on your transcript than an F.
Right.
And that class that you're struggling so hard in, it's actually taking away from all of your other classes. So your performance is affected in all of your subjects. If you drop this one class and maybe think about doing it over the summer where you can focus on it more, you're going to be successful across the board. So we have very, very realistic conversations with students. I want to do what's best for them, and I want to find what's going to be the best approach for them so that they can be successful. But we talk about our counseling center. There's support groups that they provide every semester. So we talk about these things and we let them know of these opportunities. But like I said, sometimes life happens and it doesn't matter what we do. That's just not the right time.
Yeah,
it's not going to work.
Right. And sometimes having that conversation isn't necessary, and it might just be okay. Maybe now is just not a good time, right?
But even having those conversations, you don't know where that's going to lead later.
Yeah.
Right. Say they leave and they take that year and they realize that was a really good experience. That school really cared. I'm gonna go back there.
Right.
So exactly. And all of everything that we do, I tell my team, as long as we always put the students first and do what is best for them, everyone wins in the end.
Yes.
It all works out exactly the way it should, to the benefit of the student.
Right. And that's so critically important for students, prospective students, current students, and families to understand, is in the selection process to be able to make that connection, take advantage of these resources, but also to understand that you want to select a school that cares,
Yes,
that has people that truly cares about their success, and how that could look very different from one student to the
absolutely.
next.
And you
Right?
don't know until you visit. You
Yes.
know, we at these events, some of these families, they've been, I'm not exaggerating. I had a parent tell me, with all of their children, they've been to 14.
Wow.
So, and they're different.
Yeah.
And the parents will tell me, you know, these about the differences and what they liked and what they didn't like. So it is important. I think a campus visit where you can talk to the school and maybe talk to students in a more intimate setting is great. But I think those big events that are held, there's also a lot offered on those days that students can take away a great deal of information and a better feel for what it's like when the campus is really, you know, excited and pumped up.
Vibrant, when there's
Yes.
kind of just a lot going on. It really gives you a good feel.
Mhm.
So, you know, I just definitely want to, you know, thank you for your expertise. Thank you for sharing your experience and your knowledge in terms of, you know, what student success looks like and how it could look very differently from one student to the next, and how, you know, this information translates to prospective students and their families. I think one of the major takeaways is also to understand that, you know, at the end of the day, when we talk about the college experience, it's about completion.
It is.
And so we want students to complete, students want to complete, parents want their
Yes.
students to complete, and we're all rooting for them. And so, you know, I really want to just thank you for your time and, you know, everything that you shared. This was, you know, super beneficial to our community. And, you know, I definitely look forward to having more conversations, because we didn't get a chance to even touch on the business major aspects of, you know, college life, as one of the top, you know, majors across the US. And so I would love to continue and maybe have a part two where
Sure.
we talk about business majors. You know, I was a business undergrad major, and I have a lot to say about that. And I've worked in business schools for the majority of my career. So
Yeah.
we'll get to that eventually. But, you know, again, you know, thank you. I don't know if you have any, you know, last thoughts or, you know, any final remarks that you'd like to make.
You know, I want to stress that higher education really is life changing. You know, as you mentioned, you know, coming from a small town, you know, first generation low income, I'm able to do things in my life now that I could have never done without my education. And I also want to stress that there isn't a one size fits all approach. You know, there is absolutely nothing wrong with starting at your local community college and getting more comfortable and being in an environment that maybe you are close to home and you have a support system. That's fine. No one is saying you shouldn't do that. We want to find what's going to work best for the students, for that student success. And it's a different formula for every student that we talk to, as you know.
Yes, absolutely. You really hit the nail on the head there. I mean, everybody's path is different.
Yes.
There's not a one size all fits approach. And, you know, I think students may get caught up with understanding that, you know, it has to be this way. My life, my trajectory, my education has to look this way. And sometimes we make mistakes. You know, you and we're still learning as well. So you never stop. It's important for students to take risks, but also to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of them.
Yes.
And really use that information to make the best decision for them. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for joining us today. This has been
my pleasure.
Wayfinder Wednesday, and I will certainly get back to you for part two because we have so much more to talk about, but definitely appreciate your time. Thank you to our viewers who are watching. I hope you found this information to be valuable and beneficial for you and your student, especially for those of you within the college search process. Thank you again.